Got a slug of chains into the shop. Probably, let's see, 2, 4, 6, 8, 9, 10 chains there. Different sizes, different styles. So I'm gonna go through these chains and get them sharpened. I do get a lot of good feedback from you guys liking to watch the chain sharpening videos. I've got the Stihl USG grinders. If you guys haven't seen those before, they're really nice machines. I've used other grinders in the past, but Stihl USG ones are really nice, accurate, and everything you could possibly want. So if you do a lot of chains, well worth the money. These are like about $700 brand new, but if you're doing a bunch of chains, I mean, it'll pay for itself, especially if you have a tree company or you're a hobbyist and go through a lot of chains. So first thing I'm going to do is I set up my grinding wheels. Grinding wheel, this one's going to be 1/4 inch 3/8 Pico, which is going to be your smallest chains, usually found on your pole saws, your entry-level homeowner consumer saws, your battery-powered saws. So what those chains are going to look like are going to be the smallest cutting tooth I have. So let's see if I can find one of these. So you can see 3/8 Pico chain, really small there. What I'm going to do is I'll get stuff set up on this particular chain. If it's a steel chain, it's going to have a strap on it. This one has a green strap. Green strap means it's a safety chain. If it's a yellow strap, it means it's not a safety chain. Husqvarnas are going to have a gold strap on them. Most of your off brands or your aftermarket stuff isn't going to have an identifiable strap. How you'll know where the splice is usually a couple of the cutting teeth are going to be super close together instead of evenly spaced apart. That's just usually how it works when those aftermarket chains are being cut. So let me throw this on there and I'll get started and show you how it runs. First thing I'm going to do is get everything situated here at the chain. I want to see where I'm coming down with my grinder. All I want to do is just take down the very front edge of that chain, clean up the tip. I don't want to be cutting a lot of meat off there. You start doing that, you're going to weaken the metal on there, you're going to start turning it black. You don't want to do any of that. Just enough where you get this down in that gullet there, clean up that cutting tooth, get the point reestablished. So this is going to be my lock into place. Keeps the chain from moving around there and sliding. And then of course on the front, I'll show you on this one right here, it's going to have different degrees. So on the rakers I'm hitting it at 0, but if I'm doing the cutting teeth, these are standard chains, so they're going to be at 30 and -30. And then the corresponding on the back side, your B placement is going to be positive or -15 degrees. My cheat sheets, I don't know if you guys have seen these before. If you watch some of my other videos, I've had those on there. This tells all my corresponding angles for the chains, depending on which chain I'm cutting. 1/4 inch 3/8 Pico, it'll tell me my settings. My A setting is going to be my back setting, which is going to be this angle right here. And then my B setting is going to be the 15 or -15 degrees on most chains. And then for the cutting teeth, 30 degrees. So 30 degrees is going to be for your standard chains. It's going to be for your super. It's going to be for your micro. It's going to be pretty much all your standard chains. Once you start getting into hexa chains, those are going to be 25 degrees. Once you get into RMF chains, RMX chains, I mean, those are going to be your milling chains. Those are 10 degrees. So just make sure that whatever you guys are sharpening, you're hitting the right degrees on there. So I got this set up. So let me show you guys how it works. So I'm just going to do one cut down. Doesn't really have to take much meat off. I'm going to go to the next one. Take it down. And then you can sort of see right there, if you look at the front, some nice clean metal. Looking at this tooth right there. Catch it with the light a little bit maybe. But you don't want to turn that colors. You don't want to get it heated up a lot. So just enough to clean that point off. Not too much, not too little. and just keep going around. Stihl does have a foot pedal for these. I choose not to use a foot pedal because it's just really inefficient. The way I do it is a lot quicker because I've done enough of these. So once you get everything set up, it's just a matter of going around, hitting all the individual teeth on there. Nothing needs to be readjusted until you flip over to the other side. Just all pretty straightforward stuff. So what I'm doing is I'm going around, I'm going to look for that green strap. That green strap is where I started, and then as soon as I see the green strap, I know that I've gone all the way around the chain. And when I've done that, I'll switch my angles out, and then I'll hit the other side of the chain. And then when that's done, I'm going to go ahead and hit the rakers. So there's my green strap. So green strap right there. That means the chain is done. I've hit all the cutting teeth on that side. So now I'm going to flip the angles over and I'm going to go hit the other side of the cutting tooth. So I'll drop that in there. Go to my first tooth. Lock it into place. Change over to 30 degrees on my C setting. Negative 30 degrees. And then I'm going to go negative 15 degrees on my B setting. And then with this, I'm just going to make sure it's realigned with my grinding disc. And then I'm going to go ahead and drop it in there and go through that side. And then this has an adjustment on this piece right here where you can push it in. I don't know if you guys can see that. Push it in, pull it out. So when I'm doing this side of the teeth, I want it pulled out so that way it's sitting hard behind there. So when I'm putting pressure down on that tooth, it's not turning it and twisting it. It's doing a direct, clean shave on the front of it. So if you have just a dull chain that doesn't really need to be cleaned up too much, you should be able to just hit it once and go around and reestablish that point. If somebody hit a rock or something like that and your chain's pretty messed up, you might have to go around it a few times. But just remember, whatever you do on one tooth and one side, you need to do the same thing on all the teeth to keep everything even. So it might take you a few trips around because you don't want to take off too much meat at one time. You just want to clean that end up. Just go through, take a little bit, get the color back. So I've gone all the way around now. Seen my green strap for the second time. So now I'm going to hop right over here. This is going to be my raker setup. So if you're unfamiliar with what a raker is, the raker is this area directly in front of the cutting tooth. So you can see that right there. So the raker is what's going to set the chip depth when you're cutting. So when you take down the cutting tooth, it's pointed at an angle going upward. When you take it back, it's going to get smaller and smaller and smaller. So you need to take this raker down too, so that way it's an equalization of that cutting tooth. If you don't take this raker down, it's going to maintain high. The cutting tooth is going to get lower, and your chip depth is going to get smaller and smaller to the point where this tooth is not going to clear the raker and you're not going to be cutting any wood. So this is my gauge that I use for checking the rakers to see if I need to take them down and how much. What I'm going to do is I'm going to set this on the cutting tooth, and whatever's sticking up in this little groove right here of the raker is what I need to file down. So if you're doing it manually, same thing applies. Right here, I just slide it. It's just barely catching. So I don't know if you guys can see that or not, but right there. So I'm going to do one pass around. That should be sufficient for this because when I'm taking that down, I usually take the rakers down pretty much every single time. But the only way you're going to know for sure is to check that depth. So make sure you guys have one of these depth gauges. Even if you're filing by hand, you still need to check the rakers. Green safety chain, rakers, all that means is you have 2 rakers there. So if you can see, you got 1 and 2. So on a yellow chain, you're going to have the raker that's directly across from the cutting tooth. You are not going to have that second raker there. So that second raker is only on green safety chains. So what happens is it opens up on the bar tip and it reduces the kickback when you're doing plunge cuts. So for those of you that don't do a lot of cutting, I would stick with the safety chains, reduce kickback. A lot of you professional cutters know the kickback, are familiar with your saw, so you know the extra precautions you need to take, and you can cut without that second raker. So as far as the cutting tooth goes, they're going to be the same exact cutting tooth. If you have a semi-chisel or a full chisel, it's going to be the exact same on a green and a yellow chain. The only difference, like I said, is that raker assembly right there. So don't be thinking that you're getting a superior chain by getting a yellow super over a green super, because that cutting tooth is exactly the same. So just know that going into it. A lot of people don't know that. They think there's something extra special. They're better chains, but that's the only difference, is that raker. So keep that in mind. And then with this, I'm just going to move this around until I set my grinding wheel where I want it. And then these, I also have a disc to clean these up. So I just dress that before I use it to get the little grooves out of there. One quick tap. You don't grind it all the way down. You don't take too much off. Just enough to clean that up and equalize that raker. So you just go all the way around. I'm going to look for that green strap again. Nothing fancy here. And then usually, if there's burrs and stuff on the drive links, it'll catch them on this when I'm going around, and then I got to clean those up. Just a little bit of burring there. That's not too bad. But what burrs are is if your chain goes flying off during the operation of the machine and it hits the sprocket, it's going to leave a little gouge in there, and that little dimple that's created on your drive link tooth is what's going to keep it from seating into the bar groove. So the chains, drive link teeth, and the bars have to be perfect, otherwise it won't fit in there. So any distortion or damage on there is going to keep it from seating properly, and you're going to notice it's going to stick. And if you got it really bad, sometimes people will push on it and lodge that chain with some burrs on it into the bar. And what happens with that is when you start your saw, it won't rotate and it'll die out as soon as you give it full throttle. And that's because your chain essentially is seized on your bar. So burring can become a big issue. Just make sure that if you guys do have burrs, you take a flat file or a Dremel tool or something, clean those up, make sure that they're working again, and that way everything's functioning the way it should. Now I'm back at my green strap right there. So this chain is completely done. So I got all the way around there. I have both sides cutting teeth. I've hit the rakers on top, cleaned everything up. I've checked the drive links because I've rotated it through there. If the drive links are rotating freely through here, that would just basically resemble being on a bar. So nothing's catching. How I know when they're catching is if I'm going around and it lifts up like that, where it won't seat in there, then I'll go right back to that. I'll flip it over, take a look at it. Usually it's pretty obvious when you have a nick or a gouge in there. Sometimes it's more subtle, so you'll just know by rotating it through there. You can accomplish the same thing on your bar if you put the chain on your bar tip and you just rotate it through like that. If stuff is lifting out of that groove or it's sticking, you know you got a burr on it. So that's something to watch out for. I see that quite often, especially on homeowner stuff. Guys that aren't really familiar with chainsaws don't have the proper tension on there. And when you don't have the proper tension on there, the chains tend to get slop in them, and then when they get slop in them, they go flying off in the operations. And of course, when your chainsaw is going, 11 to 13,000 RPMs, it doesn't take much for that metal on metal contact to end up causing damage. And unfortunately, the chain's going to lose because the sprocket's moving faster than the chain. So that is something to keep in mind. I do want to show you one thing I noticed here. I've got the customer brought in a Duro chain. So how I tell it is a Duro chain, it's going to be the carbide tip. Notice how that looks, that cutting tooth, it's welded on there. So compare it to this other cutting tooth. If you see the difference. So let's see if I can get one here that shows you a side-by-side comparison. So just look at that. The Duros are going to have that little tail on the back. So you're going to know that's your carbide tooth. And with the carbide tooth, you're going to have to use a different wheel. So I'm going to have to use my diamond wheel, which is this guy here. These are like $100 some, so they're very expensive. Just got to make sure you take care of them. But you have to use those. You can't use your regular wheels. That carbide is so hard. If I take the standard wheel and I try to cut into it, it's going to chunk this up and it's going to destroy it. So you have to use a diamond wheel. And I put this guy in here. And with the Duros, you're going to have to change some of the angles here. So if we look at the chart, we got an RD3. Let's see. Rapid Duro chain. So I'm going to go to 25 degrees and then negative 25 on there. So on this machine, I can't really see it too well with the camera here. There's a nut that you loosen right here. And when you loosen that, it allows this to rotate freely. So I'm going to readjust my angle there. Get where I need to be on that. Get it right there. Tighten it back down. You want it good and tight because you don't want that slipping when you're trying to hit your angles. So we got that. Adjust this down to 25. And then I'm going to look for the drive link strap here. Sometimes they're really hard to find, these straps, depending on how old the chain is and how dirty it is. If you can't find it, you're just going to have to either mark it or just watch out when you're cutting. Something to watch out for on these Duros too, a lot of times they're going to be missing teeth. So it's just the nature of the beast. Guys run these chains hard. There's 2 teeth that are missing on there, just broke off. Usually you can still run these fine, missing some teeth. I mean, this one's a little rough. There's a couple more that are sort of boogered up there. This one's probably getting close to the end of the life just because we've got, I'm counting 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I mean, 10 teeth on there. This one's probably not worth saving. I mean, when you get into a situation like this, I would call the customer and ask them what they want to do with the chain. Nobody's going to go through and replace 10 cutting teeth on a Duro chain. You don't want that many replacement straps in there. So once it's got that much damage on it, I would just tell the customer to get a new one, or if it's your own chain, I would probably throw it away. Unless you're really, really cheap, I guess you could sharpen up what's left there and just run it, like if you're doing some stumping or just something that's going to be crappy material you're cutting through, and it doesn't really matter if it lasts or not. But when you have that many teeth broke off, I would not mess with that one anymore. So going through this pile of chains, he's got a few more 3/8 Pico, and then I've got some bigger 3/8 chains, some 325 stuff. It looks like that was the only Duro in there. So since I'm not gonna do that one, I'll switch back and I'm gonna go to a 325 3/8 disc. These 325 3/8 discs will fit most of the chains. Like on Husqvarna side of things, pretty much all your Pro Series stuff, your Farm and Ranch Series stuff. On Stihl side of things, the Farm and Ranch versions, your 250 saw, all the Pro Series stuff, everything from 362, 400, 462, 500, 661, even the 881. So that's got a wide range of stuff on there. But we'll just swap that out really quick. So you can sort of see why I have a couple machines set up here, for one for the rakers, one for the cutting teeth, because I don't want to have to switch all these angles and do all this back and forth stuff. I actually bought a third machine so I can do my Pico stuff on there versus my standard full-size stuff. That just makes more sense to me because I do an awful lot of chains. I mean, there's a stack of 10. I got another box here somebody just brought in. I got more on the shelf. So, I mean, today between all the customers, I probably got 50, 60 chains somebody's just dropped off. So when I'm doing that volume of chain, especially in the wintertime around fall season, when everybody's cutting wood and stuff, I'll get buckets of chain in here, and I don't want to have to sit and start moving everything around. It just really doesn't make any sense to me. So let me get this swapped out, get my angle back. So for the carbide tooth, I switched to 30. Now I'm going back to 40 on my A setting. And of course, that is all on my cheat sheet on the wall. So I'm pretty sure most of these angles will be right on most machines, but check with the manufacturer on there. But this is what I use for Stihl stuff. So it's really handy, especially if you have this USG grinder sheet. It just makes everything pretty simple, straightforward. So most all the chains, with the exception of, like I said, the hex of the Duro, stuff like that, is all going to be set up pretty much the same. So there's not a lot of variation and changes in it. But let's throw another one on here. Again, looking for the strap. This end is a complete disaster. So this, and I think they were cutting some railroad ties, so it's got that creosote on there, packed on really good. It's for a landscape company. And then something too, like these guys really don't take good care of their chains. If you notice there, it's rusted. Guys are gonna leave this stuff sitting around. These have dirt in them and everything else. So I'll notice when I'm rotating them around the machine if stuff's getting caught. If there's only a few areas where it's getting stuck, I'll take some PB Blaster and try to bust it loose for them. Otherwise, if it gets really bad, I guess you can soak them in diesel. That'll break some of that rough stuff too. But if you got more than a few drive links that are stuck because somebody neglected it and it's rusty, I would pretty much throw the chain away. So that's all I got for now, guys. Thanks for tuning in. I got a customer at the front desk, so I'm going to get going here. But thanks for watching the video. And check out my channel for lots of other great content on there. And everybody that said hi, shout out to you guys. And thanks again. Have a great rest of your day.